We continue our working day, and now the floor is given to Ministry of Defense of Ukraine spokesman on ATO-related issues, Colonel Oleksandr Motuzyanyk. Good afternoon, everyone. Now the information about the events that happened in the ATO zone during the last 24 hours. The Lugansk sector, Stanично Lugansk region, there the enemy delivered 2 shellings in Valyevska village and in the regional center. Heavy weapons was not used. The Novoidaryvsky region, after 6 p.m. the situation deteriorated sharply in Krymsk. There the enemy organized 4 shellings, all of them with the use of mortars. And the enemy launched 40 mines. And the occupants also used armored vehicles. The Popasnyansky region, here traditionally the situation is the most tense in the Lugansk sector. Between 6 and 10 p.m. Russian occupation forces shelled with the use of heavy weapons several our positions, and they used 120mm mortars and cannons of 122 and 152mm of caliber, and also they delivered fire from tanks. And on the whole, during the last 24 hours, there were 15 shellings in the Lugansk sector, including 8 with the use of heavy weapons. The Donetsk sector, Svetlodarsk Bulge, yesterday, here there were 10 enemy shellings, including 2 mortar shellings. The enemy violated ceasefire in the morning, during the day and in the evening, and traditionally the occupants were more active after sunset. As the region of Gorlovka, there the situation was calmer, and there was 1 shelling in Zaitsev and 1 in Verkhnya Terezhka. Both happened between 1 and 3 p.m. And the second was with the use of mortars. The region of Avdiivka, here as previously the situation is really tense. The first shelling started right after midnight. It lasted for about half an hour, and the enemy launched 40 mines. In the morning, the military actions continued, and the occupants once again used heavy weapons. After 4 p.m., they started heavy shelling, lasting 7 hours, and there was uninterrupted fire with the use of small arms, and also the enemy launched 50 mortar shells. And about 7 p.m. the enemy mine damaged the electricity supply line, and now the town went without electricity, and the work of the Donetsk filtration station was stopped. Ukrainian servicemen and the civil and military administration take all measures in order to provide the security to repair workers that now carry out repair works. And neighboring position near Kamienka, there were 2 more enemy shellings, one of them with the use of mortars. In the region of the Donetsk airport in Opatna and Pisky, the enemy violated ceasefire 5 times. And all those episodes were during light hours, and one of these shellings was a mortar shelling and 1 sniper shelling. On the whole, during the last 24 hours in the Donetsk sector, there were 30 enemy shellings, 10 with the use of heavy weapons that is banned by the Minsk agreements. The Mariupol sector, the Mariinsky region, there the militants shelled regional center and adjacent positions of the armed forces of Ukraine with use of mortars. It happened in the evening after sunset, and the enemy launched 20 mines. Volnovasky region, the occupants repeatedly violated ceasefire frontline positions that are to the north and east of this regional center. Such armed provocations happened in Berezove, Novotroitsk, Bogdanivka, Staromikhailivka and Novogrigorivka. And heavy weapons was not used at that. And in Pavlopil, Shirokina, part of front line, the situation remains tense. The Russian occupation forces more than 10 times use heavy weapons, tanks, mortars, and large caliber artillery. Traditionally, the biggest number of shelling is in Shirokin and Vodyane, and the Ukrainian forces return fire. On the whole, during the last 24 hours in the Mariupol sector, there were 38 enemy shellings, 14 with the use of heavy weapons. During the last 24 hours, and the result of the military actions, 2 Ukrainian servicemen were killed, 3 were wounded. Our hearts go out to the families of those who were killed. SBU officers found new evidence of Russian aggression against Ukraine. This time, near one of the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in Donetsk, law enforcers found Shmel fire gun of Russian make. And also in the region of Nitaila village, it's in Novatsky region of Donetsk Oblast, in one of the private ponds, special forces seized 41 artillery shells of 152 millimeter of caliber, and there were Russian markings, this weapon. And in Chernivtsi, SBU stopped activity of anti-Ukrainian organization. The founders of so-called Organization of Protection of Rights of National Minorities for the money of Russian curators carried out anti-Ukrainian propaganda. And the heads of these organizations popularized the ideas of Galitsky separatism and spread the materials. They call on economic and political separation of West Ukrainian oblasts from Ukraine. And they also placed articles in the media to support DPR and LPR, and also supported aggressive Russian foreign policy.
Also, the law enforcement officers in Kramatorsk detained the members of the so-called Union of Veterans of Donbass Berkut. One of those guys who in the past was in the original militia detachment, and he in 1995 became pensioner. In the end of July 2014, he was proposed to join the so-called preliminary investigation authority. In the repression structure, he gave his consent, and he worked in a separate room where he checked those citizens accused of administrative or criminal offenses. According to this former member of the illegal armed formations, those employees of the so-called investigation authority battered and tortured the detained persons. Also, yesterday in Drushkivka, the police detained a local citizen who in 2014 was a member of the illegal armed formations and took the duty at the checkpoints. Also, over the last 24 hours in the Donetsk region, because of the mishandling of the explosive items, 3 people were killed and 2 more were wounded. Yesterday in Marnograd, in a private house, an explosion took place, as a result of which 2 persons were killed. It has been established that the owner of this house and his guests tried to dismantle one of the explosive items. The law enforcement officers found fuse of the grenade, and in the kitchen another grenade. In Chasovy Yar, one of the person actually started to dismantle one of the explosives, the projectile from the manual grenade launcher. As a result, he was killed. Unfortunately, no more suffered. Another incident took place in Lugansk Bakhmut district. 2 men in the state of alcoholic intoxication decided to compete in throwing the combat grenades. Both of them were wounded. We call upon everybody to report timely to the competent authorities when they find any explosives. The other day in the Bakhmut city court, sentenced to 4 years of imprisonment, former citizens of Mironovsk Bakhmut district in Donetsk region. This lady collected the information about the dislocation and the movement of the personnel and the equipment of ATO, and she gave this information to the enemy, and based on this information, they bombarded the armed forces of Ukraine in the Svitlodar Bulge. In Slavyansk, the policemen revealed from the driver of the minibus almost 150 cartridges of different calibers hidden under the front passenger seat. Also, the Slovyansk police received information about the explosive items. The guard of the local boiler house found in the under the ground 3 explosives for 3 projectiles for the sub-barrel grenade launcher. Also, another local citizen informed the law enforcement officers of the tripwire with the anti-tank mine. There is no it was diffused and eliminated. And in Chernigov region, they carried out the training session for the commanders of different military units, how to eliminate the explosive hazardous items, and also they were demonstrated different designs of the trench shelters, and also how to eliminate and defuse different mines and shells. Also, what to do in the field conditions when on the march. Actually, this exhausts the information for this period of time. Should you have any questions, please, it's important time. Oleksandr Dvornikov, can you actually give us more information where we have the wounded persons and because of what? All the cases of killing and wounding of our soldiers were because of the actions of the Russian occupation forces. One of the guys was killed in Troitsk and one in Lugansk. As a result of the bombardment, also in Troitsk, we have 3 more wounded persons. In Avdiivka. Another serviceman was wounded. Len Savchuk, Press TV channel. Can you comment on the yesterday's decision taken by the 3-party contact group regarding the withdrawal of the forces in Lugansk? I'm not authorized to comment on the decisions taken in Minsk, but once again, I would like to say that both the Armed Forces of Ukraine and other law enforcement authorities are prepared to fulfill any decisions to be taken by the Minsk group. We are prepared for both withdrawal and for the unilateral ceasefire. Once again, I repeat myself, we are prepared to do that, but we are waiting for steps to be taken by the other side. Speaking about the situation in Stanitsa Lugansk, I already mentioned, we are expecting the ceasefire on the part of the Russian occupation forces at least within the next 7 days. So far, we cannot see anything. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Carol. And this brings us to the end of your briefing. Thank you. Next briefing.